Good morning, PCC. Welcome to this beautiful Sunday morning. My name is Antonio, and I'll be your host for today. We love to have you worshiping with us here today, and we would love to know where you guys are from. So if you can, click that box and let us know. We at PCC believe that church should be enjoyed and endured. So we would love if you were to share this link and share the message with somebody you know, and also all the group chats where you are involved.
Gave me courage to believe that all your goodness I would see. 'Cause if it had not been for you standing on my side, where would I be? If not for your goodness, if not for your grace, I don't know where I would be today. If not for your kindness, I never could say I'm still standing. If not for your mercy, if not for your love, I most likely would have given up. If not for your favor, I never could say I'm still standing. But by the grace of God, to you I lift my offering and set my heart on higher things. 'Cause if it had not been for you standing on my side, where would I be? If not for your goodness, if not for your grace, I don't know where I would be today. If not for your kindness, I never could say I'm still standing. If not for your mercy, if not for your love, I most likely would have given up. If not for your favor, I never could say I'm still standing. But by the grace of God, on Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. On Christ the solid rock I stand, but by the grace of God. On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. On Christ the solid rock I stand, but by the grace of God, I'm still standing. I'm still standing. I'm still standing. But by the grace of God, I'm still standing. I'm still standing. I'm still standing. But by the grace of God, if not for your goodness, if not for your grace, I don't know where I would be today. If not for your kindness, I never could say I'm still standing. If not for your mercy, if not for your love, I most likely would have given up. If not for your favor, I never could say I'm still standing. I'm still standing. I'm still standing. But by the grace of God.
We at PCC exist for one reason: helping you experience a better life. We accomplish that by knowing God, finding your purpose, making a difference. I know that firsthand personally because I grew up in PCC ever since I was a little boy. My grandmother has gone there. Hello, Grandma. My sister has gone there. And I have also gone there my whole life. PCC has taught me how to be a man and better myself in the future, and also be able to reach out to other people and bring them closer to God. Today, this morning, Pastor Gary will be continuing his sermon series called Follow. and I'm excited to hear it. But before we do, I invite you to worship with us one more time.
Let praises arise from the inside of me. May you delight
I followed Jesus because I was taught to. We grew up in a church home. We had to go to church every Sunday. So even if I didn't know how to pray or why we were praying, I was taught to pray and to follow Jesus and to believe in him. I kept following Jesus because I saw a lot of people who were on fire and how he changed in a lot of people's lives, some people that you would think is troubled. And I wanted that for myself. I wanted it so bad. So I kept following him, kept waiting to get the breakthrough that everybody went through to become Christians or being on fire for God. The advice I usually give people are testimonies who are not followers or who are followers. I feel like giving testimonies are the best way to connect with people, to help people heal, to let them know that they're not alone, even if God feels far away, or even if people feel like people can't understand them. So I usually do give people testimonies because it helps you heal better. And it makes you feel more loved and supportive and feel like you're not the only person in this world that's going through a troubled time.
Hey, good morning, church. It's really good to be with you guys again this week. Another Sunday where I get to welcome you from behind a screen. It's what? I don't know. It's so many weeks now since we're in COVID. I can hardly even count how long that we're in COVID kind of shut down. And quite honestly, we don't know when we're going to get back together. We're at the mercy of the school board. But until then, I want to keep encouraging you guys to have your small groups and your Zoom calls and your WhatsApp, and just reach out to each other by phone and keep in contact. I have a message that I believe that God is going to speak to some people today. But before I get into that message, let me just pray. Heavenly Father, Lord, I just ask that you speak through me now as I deliver what you have laid on my heart to your people far and near. In Jesus' name, amen. So, as I oftentimes like to do, this morning I'm going to start off with a question. I got a question for you guys. So here's a question. It's like, have you ever been in love? It's like, I don't matter how old you are, just think back to a time when you're in love. And, some people's like, well, I don't even know if I've ever been in love. All right, so let me ask you this question. And so have you ever thought, think back to a time when you thought you were in love. And if you it's like, I don't remember if I thought I was in love. All right, let me ask the third question. How many of you have liked a person and found out that person liked you back? Now think back into if you're one of our seniors, think back to way back when you were in school. All right, good. So now that you have the picture in your mind. When I was in high school, I dated a girl that was a few years older than me, and I was having fun dating a college girl. I was in high school, and things were all right. And as the young people would say, I was just vibing. I was just chilling, vibing. And then one day she's asked me this question. She goes, Gary, what do we have? What is this? What kind of relationship do we have? It's like, I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, well, where's this relationship going? And I was just chilling. I was perfectly fine. It was. And she said, I want us to define this relationship. Define the relationship. And I first talked about this concept about 5 years ago. But it's really one of the things I call it a DTR moment, define the relationship moment. And I'm going to sound like a guy, and you guys can send me email and say guys do that too, but girls do that, they're like, you go out for a while, you vibing, and they're like, what is this? What do we have? And the thing is that I can distinctly remember that because at that time I was kind of faced with a decision. And the decision that I was faced with was, is this real, or is this for real, or was this just fun? Am I really seriously interested in a relationship, like a committed relationship with this girl, or was I just really committed to the idea of a relationship? and started thinking through like what do I want to do? Like, what was I in this like for convenience, or really what I could get out of it? And just really the kind of thought was in his mind was like, I went into this relationship with like really what's in it for me. I was having fun. I really, it sounds kind of bad, but I didn't really, I cared about it, but I didn't really care about it. It was really about me. And inadvertently, if you've ever, kind of been in a relationship and you just started out, eventually one of you guys is going to come to the point where somebody's going to force a decision, where you have to make a decision. What is, you probably think is like, what is he to me really? Or what is she to me really? Or is this like, like my little side piece here? Or I am committed to this relationship. And pretty much all relationships, all, voluntary relationships start off the same way. You start off with the question. And if you think back, and that's why I ask you to think back about it, she's like, it could be a friend, it could be something romantic. It's like any relationship, like, yes, well, you meet somebody and like, do I really like this person? And you go through like, do I really like how this person makes me feel? Do I like how they look? Do I like what they can buy me? And you go through all these things, but at the center of everything that you're going through, there's this kind of one word in there. It's the I or me, or as a group named De La Soul would say, it's just me, myself, and I. And for the past 3 weeks, we've been doing a series that we've called Follow, where we've been looking at an invitation that Jesus gave to the people he came in contact with when he was walking around on earth. And everywhere Jesus went, he gave the same invitation. Sometimes he gave the invitation. He gave the invitation with words. Other times he gave the invitation by example. And sometimes he did both. And it was this invitation to follow. Jesus like, come follow me. Follow what I'm doing. And he's like, follow it's like, I broke it down like the first week. It's like, first one was like, follow my example. Jesus like, look what I'm doing and do the same thing. And follow my teachings. And follow the path that I've set out for you and invited you to follow. And that path really is to know God, find freedom, discover your purpose, and go out and make a difference. And Jesus gave this invitation over and over and over again to find. And what we said in week 1, it's like 3 steps of a ladder. That Jesus gives an invitation to say, hey, follow my example. And you'll find out that you'll start to live a better life. If you just look at how Jesus treated people and follow that example of how he treated people. If you look at how when situations came up and how Jesus handled those situations, he's like, you know what? I'm going to imitate that. I'm going to follow that. It's kind of the whole WWJD, what would Jesus do? Just kind of think about what Jesus would do and you just kind of imitate that. And if you did that, what you'd find out is that if you just imitate Jesus, you don't believe that he's God, you don't believe anything. Just by imitating what he did, you'll find out that, and how he handled the situation, you find out that you have less stress in life, and you'll find out that you'll handle difficult situations with more wisdom. You'd find that your life would just start being better. And some of you, may just be ready for step 1, rung one off the ladder. You step on the ladder. He's like, somebody listening out there says, I don't know about this Jesus thing. I don't know about this God thing. I don't know about anything, but I know Jesus was a pretty good guy. I'm just going to follow some of the things that he did. And I call that the no commitment option. Because there's a no commitment option because you can jump in and follow, or you can jump out and don't follow. And you'll find out that the areas where you're following him in, it'll just work out better than the areas where you don't follow him in. So that's rung one on the ladder. Step 2, or the second rung of the ladder, is to not only follow his example, but follow his teachings. And the teachings of the people he inspired to write the Bible. And he inspired a bunch of people to write the Bible. And something that I've discovered is that literally there is nothing that you will ever experience in life that the Bible doesn't teach about, that the Bible doesn't talk about. There's literally nothing. Some of the best leadership advice, or probably the best leadership advice I've ever gotten, I've gotten from the Bible. Some of the best relationship advice I got from the Bible. The best financial advice to manage my personal finances and to think about give, save, live, and all that, I got from the Bible. The best parenting advice I got from the Bible. The best decision-making advice I got from the Bible. I got from the teachings of the Bible. It's the most practical book for living. It is like a handbook for life. And, one of these things that I heard a preacher say many years ago when I was about 15, 16. When you think about the Bible, you think that it's like an acronym. It stands for Basic Instructions Before Leaving Earth. That's the Bible. Basic instructions before leaving earth. And if you don't have a Bible, man, I'm telling you, get one and start reading it. You'll find out that your life will start to change. And you're like, well, where do I get one? I'm like, man, in today's day and age, it's so easy. Go to the App Store and just download the Bible app. And you can get that. You can get the Bible app. And so that's step 2, right? If step 1, you follow his example. Step 2, you follow his teachings. But step 3 is like he's called you to more than that. And what you'll find out that is as after you go through the 2 steps, you'll just automatically just be drawn to like, man, this is working out so well that you'll want to over time, without even knowing it, want to go follow step 3, which is follow his path. And here's a path that he's uniquely created for you. You see, when you were created, and I was created, we all were created with a unique DNA. There's no 2 people who have the same DNA. And we were created uniquely for a special purpose that when you discover it and when you utilize it, your life will be less stressful. You'll have more satisfaction in life. And if you want to know how to do that, you just send me a message and I'll send you some information on how you can do some tests to help you discover that in your purpose. But what you'll find out, and I'm going to tell you, you got to just try it, that following Jesus will actually make you a better father. Following Jesus will make you a better mother. Following Jesus will make you better parents overall. It'll make you better grandparents. It'll make you a better leader, a better boss, better employee, a better friend. When you follow Jesus' example, it's going to make you more honest. It's going to make you forgive quicker. It's going to make you serve with more enthusiasm. It's going to make you more generous. It's going to give you less stress. And overall, it's just going to make you a better person. Tremendously huge benefits if you just take those step 1, step 2, step 3. And in fact, Jesus himself said it's like, hey, you guys need to follow me. He said it's in Matthew 7:4, 7:24 through 27. He said this, Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine, that's Jesus talking, these words of mine, and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. And the rain came down, and the streams rose, and the winds blew, and beat against the house, yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. Jesus was saying that everyone who follows my examples, my teachings, and everyone who discovers God and finds freedom and discover their purpose and go out and make a difference, everyone who does that, if you follow that and you do that, what's going to happen? When people let you down, you know what's going to happen? When people let you down and you just immerse yourself in chick flick PG. We talked about last week. If you don't know what that is, go watch last week's message. But when you do stuff like that and people hurt you and things come and the storms of life and you lose your job, you'll be like a palm tree in a hurricane. What will happen is that the winds will blow and it'll blow and it blow and it blow, but you know what happens? It stands up. Because you'll be like a house built on the rock, firm, immovable, by following by following Jesus' example and doing what Jesus said to do. But he goes on to say, and this again is Jesus talking, he said, but everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. And the rain came down, and the streams rose, and the winds blew, and beat against the house, and it fell down with a great crash. And Jesus was saying, is like, look, if you choose not to follow my example, my teachings, and my path, what will happen is that when the storms of life come, when you lose the job, when that person hurts you, when your kid doesn't act right, when your grandkids don't act right, when your friends desert you, what's going to happen is that you are going to be buffeted and it's going to knock you over. And Jesus is like, you just need to follow the words of mine, because that's what's going to happen when you don't. And that's why we say all the time, following Jesus will not only make your life better, but it will make you better at life. But you see, there is more to it than this, right? Because if all you ever think about in your relationships, like I talked about at the beginning, is what's in it for me, you're really just like a consumer. If you think about your relationship with Jesus as what's in it for me, I'm going to follow because it's going to make my life better only. If you just all that you think about is that you're just really a consumer. For you, Jesus is just a product. And you're a consumer. You go out and buy the product because of what it's going to give you. And in our modern day culture, being a consumer is just fine. We love being a consumer. When we come to church, we like to sit down, enjoy good music, good show, and do that, and then get out of there because we're a consumer. We love consumer. We're just wired that way. And where else could you go, right? And Charles, one of our pastors said this one time. It's like, somebody went to church and just dropped, I don't know, $1 in there. He's like, where can I get a great show, and hear a great message, and for for $1. But the fact is that when we think of Jesus as consumer, we just think about the better life that we have and the get out of hell free card that we have. But you see, Jesus' invitation to follow doesn't just end with being a consumer. There is more to it than that. Because being with Jesus, being a consumer of Jesus, comes with a fine print. And everybody knows, right, that whenever you buy a product, say you go out, and we all know this, right? If you go to buy a car, what happens? It comes with an instruction manual. And in the instruction manual, you don't see all the stuff that you got to do to maintain the car when you buy the car. You just see the pretty car. And then it's like, I got to put oil in it. I got to do this. I got to do that to maintain the car. If you download a piece of software, what comes with something, you got to click accept. It's called an end user license agreement, a EULA. And you got to accept that. And same with Jesus. Coming with Jesus, man, it comes with a fine print. Everybody knows that intuitively, that you can't be a consumer without having to accept the fine print. There's a saying that I use all the time. It says, there are no free lunches. Everything has a cost. It may seem free, but it costs something. And you can't buy a product without there's being a cost behind it and some things that you got to do. There's always some fine print. A fine print that you don't see outside the package, but you only see it once you open up the package. In case you're wondering, like, okay, Gary, what is this fine print? Well, here's it in Jesus' own words. It's found in Mark 8. And, and the story here is that, well, I'll tell you the story in a second, but you know me, I like to give you a little background of the story to provide some context. So the context is Jesus had just finished feeding 4,000 hungry people with 7 loaves of bread and a few fish. It was a different case than when he fed 5,000 men, not including women and children, so probably about 8,000 people then, with bread and fish also. This one was different. This was 4,000 people. And he had collected 7 baskets and of leftovers, 7 baskets of leftovers from 7 loaves of bread for 4,000 people. Go figure that. That's an incredible miracle. The people got their dinner and they got a Jesus show. And right after that, Jesus gets in the boat with his 12 closest followers, and they set out and they went across the lake. And they realized when they set out that they forgot the 7 basket of leftovers. They was like, and so, all they had was one loaf that they kept back for themselves that they didn't give to Jesus share out. Now, if you're reading too fast, you actually miss that. Imagine Jesus going to feed the 4,000 people, and he said to the disciples, "Hey, y'all have any food?" And they're like, "Yeah, Jesus, we got some bread." They had 8. They gave Jesus 7. They kept one back. They kept one back because they're like, "Man, what's in it for me? I want to make sure I have some lunch, because all this bread's going to give out." And that was after Jesus had fed the 5,000. So they should have intuitively known that, that the bread wasn't a big deal. Jesus could just make more bread, if they wanted to do. But they're human beings, and just like us, somebody forgets something. It's like, so you get out, and apparently they start arguing. They're arguing, like, "John, how could you forget the bread?" Or Peter's like, "Man, I thought you were going to pick it up." Matthew, you're good at counting stuff. You count the baskets of bread and taking the bread. And I can imagine that they're arguing in the boat and about who was supposed to take the bread and all that. And we only got one bread left. We had 7 there. And I imagine just Jesus sitting down by the side. And he's being completely exasperated by this, and he's exasperated by them. And it's probably best telling you the words of Jesus in verse 17, Mark 8:17. Jesus, aware of their discussion, so that's how he knew they were having a discussion. Jesus asked them, "What are we talking about? Are we talking about having no bread?" It's like, do you still not see or understand? Are your hearts hardened? Do you have eyes but fail to see, and you have ears but fail to hear? And don't you remember? You guys don't remember when I broke the 5 loaves for the 5,000 people? And how many baskets I had left? How many baskets did you pick up? And they're like, 12. And Jesus is like, and don't you remember just a couple seconds ago, I broke 7 loaves of bread and fed 4,000 people? And by the way, how many basketfuls of pieces did you pick up? They answered, 7. Jesus said, "You still don't understand?" And Jesus was like, "I don't get you guys. I don't get you guys. You see what I just did? You see what I just did before? You just saw it. And we're here. We're talking about bread, and we're talking about leftovers. Is that what we're talking about?" But you see, for the disciples, it was always about being a consumer. They were always thinking about themselves first, like, what's in it for me? We call it with him. What's in it for me? WIIFM. And that's why they kept a loaf back from giving up to Jesus to distribute. It really should have been one more loaf. And that's why they were so worried about what they left behind. They were simply acting like what they were and what we oftentimes are. Consumers. Consumers of the benefits of following Jesus. So then Jesus did something. He's like, "Guys, let me show you the fine print." The fine print that comes with the invitation to follow. Here's what he said in Mark 8:27. It says, Jesus and his disciples went on to the villages around Caesarea Philippi. And on the way, he asked them a question that he asked them before. And he's like, "Hey guys, who do people say I am?" It's like, "Who do they say I am?" And they replied, "Well, some say you're John the Baptist. Others say Elijah." They thought, maybe it was Elijah. People thought Elijah had reincarnated or something. And still others said one of the prophets. And then Jesus says, "What about you guys? Who do you say I am?" And Peter is the one who's always speaking up. He's like, "You're the Messiah." And Jesus is like, "Shh, just all right, don't tell anybody about that. Just keep that quiet for now." Hey, can you imagine the conversation? Jesus is like, "Hey guys, who am I? Who am I?" Peter's like, "Man, you're Jesus. You're the man. You're the man. You're the man we follow." And Jesus was thinking, yeah, you say all of that. You know why you say all of that, Peter? Because you're a consumer. Because you're in it for what you can get. You're in it for what you can, from what you get out of my relationship. Peter, you get popularity, Peter, from hanging out with me. Yeah, you get all this. And you see, Jesus knew that Peter was thinking that way because he knew that one day Peter was going to be forced with a decision. And he knew Peter was going to it was no longer convenient to be a follower of Jesus. So when Peter was saying, Peter, man, God, you're the man. I love you. I love you. I love God. He was saying all of that. He knew what was going to happen when Peter came to that moment, that one day. But that's for another day. And then Jesus started, after he goes through that, he starts telling his disciples what's going to happen to him. He's like, man, I'm going to be arrested, I'm going to be tortured, and I'm going to be executed. And he's telling his disciples that, and he's telling the crowd, a couple people there, the crowd was there. And I like what it says there. If you read a passage, it's like fascinating story in Mark 8. You should read it sometime. Peter gets Jesus, and he pulls Jesus, like, come here, Jesus. Let me talk to you for a second. He's like, hey, can you cool out on the death and the torturing thing? Because that's like a Debbie Downer. Nobody wants to hear that. They want to see some miracles or something. We don't know exactly what he said, but whatever he said annoyed Jesus to no end. Peter's like, hey, Jesus, you're the man. You're the man. I seen you do things. I seen you move. You move the mountains, right? You're the man. He's like, stop talking about. He's like, you don't have to be arrested. It's like, nobody can take you. I say, you told me yourself. When I told you you're the Messiah, he's like, don't tell anyone. You know it. And Jesus looks at Peter, and how we know that Jesus was kind of exasperated with Peter is what happens next in verse 33. Jesus turned around, he looked at the disciples, and then he looked back at Peter, and he rebuked Peter. He said, get behind me, Satan. You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns. He was like, Peter, you know what? All you really care is about yourself and what's in it for you. Peter, you don't really care about me and my mission and my purpose and my going out and making a difference. Peter, you don't really care about my path. You don't really care about my agenda. You're hanging out with me, Peter, because of what's in it for you. Peter, that's not God's talk. That's not even God's Spirit talking to you. You know what? That is Satan talk. And so Jesus looked and he recognized that the thoughts that Peter was spewing out came from somebody who was evil, a spirit being that was evil that was telling Peter nonsense. And so he looked straight into Peter's eyes and he said, get thee behind me. He's like, in other words, he was like telling the spirit, the satanic spirit, the demonic spirit that was talking to Peter. He's like, get around so I can talk to Peter. Get away so Peter can understand. And so how I believe this and how I came to that conclusion, because what happens next is that Jesus turns to the 12 disciples there and the crowd, because there's a crowd watching and that was nearby, and he says this. He's like, whoever wants to be my disciple or my committed follower must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me and the sake of the gospel will save it. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul? When Jesus said this, he undoubtedly caught the attention of the crowd, because everybody was aware of the cross. Because the Romans had brought in a form of execution called crucifixion, and the Romans would leave up the cross so people know that, hey, if you try to go against the Roman Empire, you are going to be crucified. And so it was a reminder of pain. It was a reminder of loss of life. It was a reminder of discomfort. It was a reminder of the things that you had to give up. It was a reminder Jesus like, well, if you follow me, if you want to follow me, Peter, like you say you want to do, and if you want to follow my example, here's what it means. Just like how I have to take up my cross, you too are going to have to take up your cross. See, for me, Peter, my cross is in giving up my life. For you, your sacrifice will be your sacrifice. Whatever sacrifice you do, it is your cross. And when you say take up your cross, not as a sacrifice, it's going to, in other words, Jesus said, if you follow me, it's going to cost you something. You're going to have to, if you want to follow me, you're going to have to deny yourself from something that you want. If you're going to follow me, you can't do everything that everyone else is doing. If you're going to follow me, you're going to have to say no sometimes. You're going to have to sometimes say no to that next shot or that next drink. You're going to have to say no sometimes to that other piece of cake because you had it too much already. We all know what it means to deny yourself when you say, I know what I want, but I know that what I want is not good for me. You're going to have to say no to that invitation to be in that place where you want to be so bad that you can feel it, but you know you shouldn't be at. Jesus is saying, Peter, following me is free, but it's eventually going to cost you something. To the people listening there, that would have been a huge downer because just like us, they wanted all the benefits without any costs. They wanted all the benefits without any costs. And we all do that. I would love to buy a car and have a car that didn't need maintenance or gasoline. But now they're thinking, because when somebody tells you the fine print, you start to think, man, is it really a good deal to follow Jesus? I know it's a good deal to follow it when it's free, but man, is it worth it when it's going to cost me some fun? Or it's going to cost me some money? Or it's going to cost me some ridicule? Or it's going to cost me the girl that I think would be just so fine as in some arm candy? Or that guy is just a stallion like I always tease my wife about? But you know it's not good for you. You start to think, if the life I get with Jesus is worth the cost of following Jesus. And then I love Jesus, man. Jesus is the coolest guy ever. You just got to read about it. Jesus he's just dope. He's just, think of any word that you want to say, to describe somebody, because it was like Jesus could read their minds, that they were thinking all this stuff like, well, I want this whole cost thing, this cross thing, whatever. Like, it's like his mind is like, well, the fact is, he could read their minds. He said this. He said this. Guys, every one of you is going to die someday. Every one of you is going to die someday. No matter how well you eat, how well you exercise, all the things that you try to do to prolong your life, to save your life, well, one day you're going to lose it and you're going to die. And then he goes on to say, whoever loses the life that they desire, whoever loses the thing, whoever says no to the thing that they desire, I don't know what you desire. Maybe it's a party life. I love going to the party, rocky, and whatever it is. Whoever desires the life of the substance overuse, Whoever enjoys the lives about substance abuse, whoever wants the promiscuous life, whoever wants the work all the time life, whoever wants the messed up priorities life because I'm working so much, whoever loses that life and trades it in for the life that I desire for them, the trades in for life that they were uniquely designed and created and purposed for. Whoever gives up that life for the life I purpose for them, they will save it. And Jesus was like, when you lose that life for this life, the life that I'm going to give you, then you truly have life and life more abundantly. He went on to say, hey guys, by the way, while this life will be better, I'm not even only talking about this life. Because the fact is that there's a whole nother life that goes on after this life. That when this life is over, because you will die one day, and you go to the next life, in the next life, if you give up that life for this life, in this life, you're going to spend it with Jesus. You're going to spend it with the angels. And you're going to spend it forever and eternity. And you're going to spend it. But if you choose that life, then you're really going to lose the afterlife in that life. I mean, you're going to end up in a place where you created for Satan and his demons. He didn't create for you. Following me is going to cost you that life. He was like, guys, I want you to think about this for a second. And we're talking about your soul here. We're talking about eternity here. What good? And then you ask them this question that everybody would have known the answer to. He's like, can you imagine that you get to the end of your life? You're at the end of your life, and you're sitting there, and it's completely your decision. And Jesus said to you, do you want the life with me and my angels in heaven? Or do you want this life with the devil and his demons? It's like, which one of you would not choose the life with me? Come on, everybody knows that, right? Nobody wants that. And he's like, we're talking about your soul here. What good is it for you to amass all this fun and all this money and all this sex outside of marriage and all this whatever if you're going to die one day and leave it all behind? And you end up over here. Would you rather that life, or would you rather lose your soul, your eternity? He's like, guys, come on. Think about it. And right then and there, the disciples in the crowd had their DTR moment. And Jesus was like, let's define this relationship here. Jesus was like, what do we have here? Let's define this relationship, because following me is going to, sooner or later, it's going to cost you something. You know, some of you, it's school time back, and some of you are going off to college. Some of you have moved out of elementary school, gone into middle school. Some of you are going into high school. Some of you are out of college and starting to work. And you know, I'll just pick on college students for a second. You know, but apply it to any situation in your life, right? You know, there are no parents. You're off at college, there's no restrictions. And all these options presented to you will be fun options. And you're going to be like, you're going to have to say, about that life, right? And some of you will be faced with a major decision. And as I start going through this, right, you know, you can just insert yourself here, because you know that you're going to be faced, all of us here are going to be faced with a major decision shortly. And the decision could be, am I going to stay with my spouse that no good, fill in all the blanks, what you're thinking right now about your spouse, or I'm just going to throw in the towel and leave them. And you're at that decision point. Or maybe it's a decision point to, am I going to work out some scheme and finesse and get some extra stimulus money when the Congress finally decides on it? It's like, how can I scheme and get that? Or it could be a decision to forgive someone who hurt you deeply And you're faced with that decision. Am I going to forgive them because that's the example of Jesus? Because that's that life. Or am I going to follow Jesus' example and lead this life? Are you going to face with a major decision whether or not you should move out of your parents' home? Or you may face a decision about maybe I should move out of town and move to Atlanta. You know, Atlanta is like heaven to a lot of people, right? And and maybe it's North Carolina. Maybe that's your heaven. You're going to face a decision. It could be a decision to, hey man, to partake in some illegal substance use or some legal substance overuse. And you're right there at the decision point. Is it one more shot? Is it a smoke? Is it a pill? Is it a whatever? Is it a snort? Is it whatever? Is it going to that room or to that girl's house or to that guy? Whatever it is it filling out that application online? You're going to face with that decision right there and right at that decision point. And then it's going to feel wrong. And you're going to want to do it because you know the benefits of doing it. You're like, because it's that life. It's that life. But you're going to feel a little consternation. And then, you know what? You're going to hate me because you're going to remember this message. And then you'll be faced with a decision. Do I live that life only to lose it? To lose real life? Or do I say no to that life and say yes to this life, which is Jesus? Fact is, salvation is free. You don't have to do anything. Jesus paid it all. But truly following Jesus will eventually cost you something. So, when you face your DTR moment with Jesus, when you face your DTR moment with a decision, whether or not to follow Jesus' example and forgive and to say no and to not do that or to say yes or to refrain from gossiping or whatever it is that decision that you face, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You know, for someone listening today, your DTR moment is right now because that consternation and that feeling that I talked about, you're feeling it right this second. That maybe you've been a consumer of Jesus, but you haven't been a committed follower. You jump in when it's convenient to follow. You jump out when it's not convenient to follow. And so Jesus is saying, well, what are you going to do? And some of you just decided that I don't believe in God. And Jesus is like, I'm talking to you right now. The person who you say you don't believe in is speaking to you right now. So, what are you going to do? I want to give you the opportunity as I close to right now to say no to that life and to say yes to this life, the life that Jesus has to offer. If you want to do that, you just say this prayer after me. It's saying no and it's saying yes. Say this prayer right where you are. Heavenly Father, Lord, I don't want to live that life. I'm tired of living that life. I'm tired of just being a no commitment consumer, but I want to be a completely committed, devoted follower. Lord, I know that I'm going to have to say no to stuff. Help me to say no. Lord, forgive me of all my sins, and I commit to living for you. In Jesus' name, amen. Hey, I want to tell you that if you made that decision, you've now moved from a part-time consumer into a disciple and into a follower of Jesus. And your best life is about ready to gain. If you have forgotten what that life is, you've said yes, and then you've gone back to that life, the invitation for you is to leave that life. Whoever wants that life will lose it. Whoever wants this life will save it.
I have made you too small in my eyes. Oh Lord, forgive me. and there is nothing you can do. Oh Lord, my eyes are on you. Be magnified. Oh Lord, be magnified.
Hey guys, thank you for joining us here at PCC. It was great to have you guys with us. If you have anything that you want to pray about, if you want to talk to somebody about, just reach out to us on our prayer line. It's available for you at any time and somebody will get with you. If you found something that really touched your heart, touch somebody else that you know. Share that link. Share the service with somebody else, because I'm sure somebody else can benefit just like you did. And we hope to see you next week. Have a great week.